Hey, how's it going, guys? The mad scientist is back again. Today I released the DSG front-wheel drive dq250 adaption kit for the Ecoboost engine. That's the 1.6 turbo Ecoboost engine. I think it's a JT BA engine, JTJA and JTJB. Yeah, I think that's the engine codes. Yeah, 1.6 EcoBoost turbo engine, dq250 front-wheel drive adapter kit. I will be giving two options with this adapter kit. This is the actually the second option. This one's the second option, where it comes with a 40mm adapter plate for various reasons. Main reason being that the crank itself protrudes quite high up on the face of the block. So that's the main reason for the thick adapter. But what that does mean is that my crank adapter will use the just the normal off-the-shelf dual mass DSG dual mass flywheel, which you'll bolt straight on and call it a day. But that requires the 40mm adapter. I have another option where we can reduce this, because obviously some engine bays won't allow for this 40mm, where I can reduce this down to 16mm, and that comes with a different style crank adapter. But then I have to supply you a dual mass flywheel that is slightly machined. The PCD of the holes, I machine it slightly to suit the new crank adapter with a different style crank adapter. But the benefit is that it comes with a 16mm adapter plate. That's option one. This is option two, 40mm plate. So anyway, as you can see, all fits nicely. The sump level of the DSG and the sump level of the engine is 100% in line. In fact, sorry, it's not in line. There's a 5-degree difference. That's because this engine actually sits 5 degrees off axis. So there is a 5-degree difference between the DSG and the sump and the engine block. That's what is required. There is, let me just take you around here. Okay, so we look at it from this side. Okay. All right. So on this side, was able to reduce the adapter just to obviously save some weight, and then it takes my standard mid shaft with a lock nut, seal nut, which you obviously once you got the shaft in place and the gearbox and adapter all bolted together, the normal procedure is slacken these off first, then put your when you remove the flange from the DSG box, as per normal, when you remove the flange, there'll be a spring. There'll be a spring and a brass cone and a spring cup. Those three components, you pull it off the DSG flange, which you no longer use. Those three components will then fit onto the seal nut, and then turn the seal nut down, pull the lock nut down, tighten everything up, and then start to turn up the seal nut until you feel compression on the spring. Once you start feeling compression, you then compress it further by about 7mm, and then you lock it up. You lock it up with the lock nut, and then that's it. As you can see, I've managed to leave just enough space here for the turbo drain to be reconnected. I'm not 100% sure if the original OEM fitting will fit there. You might have to modify it, but this is the best we could do, given the space and given the close proximity of the bracket. I think you should be totally fine. Worst case, you have to just modify that a little bit, but there's definitely plenty of clearance around there, so you should be fine. And then with this kit, I'm gonna recommend using the Honda K series inner CV joint, because it's quite sturdy. It's quite a robust joint. But if you guys want to insist on using perhaps the Ford inner CV joint, you can just let me know. But for this situation, we sticking with a K series inner CV joint. Obviously, I would change up the spline to suit whatever CV cup you want to use. The actual position of the CV is, as you can see, it's pretty close to the face of the block on that side. So there's plenty room for the side shaft to articulate when the wheel is turning. So yeah, so that's. I'll just give you another view underneath here. Okay, now the adapter is 40 mil for most of the part, but I'll show you shortly how much material we actually moved. There's a lot of weight reduction pockets, so the actual adapter doesn't really weigh that much. So I'll show you shortly with the gearbox removed. Okay, so this is the view with the gearbox removed. As you can see, try to remove as much weight as possible on the adapter. So now you can see the crank adapter. It's the usual 2-piece crank adapter. When we want to use the option of the 16 mil adapter plate, then it then becomes a single piece crank adapter. But in this case, with a 40 mil main adapter, it'll be a 2-piece crank adapter. So so you got your lower crank adapter, which obviously you'll reuse the original hardware there. This section of the plate over here is 8 millimeters thick. I was told that the original flywheel is 12 mil, but for various reasons we could only get this to be 8 millimeters thick. So there is a chance you might have to trim the original flywheel bolts down or get some ARPs that are the right length. So basically this is 8 mil thick, whereas I was told the original one is 12 mil. Just check your bolts, make sure that it's that it's seating properly on the adapter. Just do a dry fit on everything first, make sure everything fits properly. So obviously torque that down and drop that on, and then with my supplied bolts, you will torque those bolts up to 64 Newton meters. I must actually still stick a bearing inside here, the pilot bearing or spigot bearing, and then your dual mass flywheel sits on here with the bolts that it comes with. So you'll notice there's a little void over here. Sometimes this happens with adapters where we need to have let's call it a take-out piece. So in this case, that take-out piece actually, this piece actually first, it's got a locating dowel that sits in that hole there. So in this case, you'll first, with the supplied hardware, you'll first bolt that main bolt down there, that one there, and you will then bolt, let's see, this one here from the other side, which will hold this in place. But don't tighten that bolt at the back, the one that comes through from the other side, that one there. Don't tighten it down until you have the assembly dropped together. And then only after you will tighten that one down. But before you push it, the assembly together, this one here needs to be tightened, but only tighten that while you have that bolt at least some threads turned in. That will locate it in the position it needs to be, then lock that down. But as I say, don't tighten that back one until the assembly is put together. So yeah, so you got the loose piece or takeout piece on first. And then, as with most or some of these DSG swaps, this one again requires that this area over here be milled flat. There's usually a casting protrusion over here and over here and over here. So you gotta, once again, using that reference, mill this 100% flat, and that section there, and then tap that thread 10 by 1 metric 10 by 1.5 thread, say about 20-25 mil deep over there and one over there. Okay, this ones would have been flat and tapped from factory already. So yeah, that's got to be milled, that's got to be milled and tapped, milled and tapped, and that's it on the prep work on the actual DSG itself. And then if I drop this in here, okay, you'll see that it lines up perfectly. Shortly I'll show you the components separately before packaging. So just as you can see, the adapter plate removed. I just wanted to show you that the seal nut that goes into the shaft, this seal nut won't pass this area over here. It won't pass. Okay, the seal nut is actually designed to sit, that little step is actually designed to sit, well, the working part of it actually sits above this casting here. So when you push the shaft in, hold the seal nut in this area over here. Just push the lower step against the side of the casting. Hold it there and then push the shaft. This is obviously while you have the gearbox in place. Push the shaft into the gearbox while holding this seal nut in that position, and then start spinning this nut onto the shaft as the shaft slowly but surely goes into the box. And then once you have the shaft all the way into the box and then the seal nut is sort of like slack, and that's when you start, and your shaft's fixed to the 3 points at the bottom, that's when at that point you will start turning the seal nut clockwise until you feel that spring pressure, and then you go your extra 7 mils. So yeah, otherwise this won't pass in a straight line. If you put this on the shaft before the time, it won't pass this casting over here. So make sure you hold it above that little step above the casting while inserting the mid shaft. Also, another thing to note is that the crank adapter, because my tolerances are so tight, the crank adapter, the lower part of the crank adapter sits over this upper edge of the crank. Now, if you look carefully, you can see it's a little bit rusted. It was not a working surface to begin with. Your main rear seal actually seals on that lower part. So this is going to have a bit of rust on it. So I would recommend to take a wire brush and actually wire brush this whole top ring, because the crank adapter will go on quite tightly to begin with, and it's going to go on extra tight if you don't get this rust off. So polish this up nicely before you attempt to put it on. It's going to make your life easier to get it off, and just apply some grease on there as well so that you can get it off one day. And that's all that's to be said. Of course, you're going to reuse your original factory dowels. Make sure they're in good shape, then they haven't been squashed in an oval shape or anything. And what else? Yeah, furthermore, there's absolutely no trimming, anything on this block at all. Everything bolts straight on. There is nothing you need to do on this block to prep for the DSG swap. And then so your components that you'll get with the kit is, so there's that seal nut, and it's your lock nut. Okay, so you got your mid shaft with your lock nut and your seal nut. Again, I'll just mention that your spring, which comes off your original DSG flange, which you're removing, the spring sits on here quite snugly, just twisted on nice, and it's quite tight on here. The spring cup, and then there's a brass cone that sits on top. So there's 3 components which you must reuse on that seal nut. So yeah, we've got your mid shaft. This side goes into the DSG box, and this spline in this case is to accept the Honda K series inner right front inner CV joint. Yeah, and your bearings already installed, everything, this lines up, no issues there. You got your mid shaft, bracket hardware, your engine hardware, and then your DSG side hardware. That's your crank adapter, which comes with the 2 16mm dowels already installed. Your O-ring that seals up against the DSG, the part that you're machining or milling flat on the DSG. This is actually where the O-ring is going to be squashing up against. And then you've got an internal seal there, which actually seals around this seal nut. Okay. Now, one thing you mustn't forget is once you're doing your final install and you're ready to turn your seal nut upwards or towards the gearbox to get that 7mm compression on the spring. When you're busy with that in its final assembly, don't forget you will need to put some sealer on the thread. So what you can do is you can put some, once you've turned this into the position you need it to be, put some sealer behind here as well as on the thread behind here, so that when you turn the lock nut up towards it, the lock nut will be turning onto some sealer here, and then the face will also be sealed as it compresses up against the back of that seal nut. You have to put sealer on there, otherwise your DSG oil will leak out of that thread. So as you can see, that's that loose piece I spoke about earlier on, which first needs to attach to the gearbox side. And then you got your crank adapter, which comes with your supplied bolts, spigot bearing already installed. Yeah, so those are the, just have a look at that there. Okay. Yeah, so those are the components for the Ecoboost 1.6 turbo engine, front wheel drive dq250 setup. Yeah guys, so thanks for watching, and remember I do custom work for if anybody has got some special engine they need with a DSG swap, please let me know. I'm always open to new adventure. So thanks for watching again.